In this video, you're going to learn about some affordable gear to help you build your worship ministry on a tight budget. My name is Jake Goslin with churchfront.com, an online resource for worship leaders and creatives. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time we release new content to help you grow yourself and grow your church. I recently got to sit down with Nathan Drake of Mina Studio. Mina Studio is a YouTube channel dedicated to helping the church build worship and tech ministries on very, very small budgets. I've included a link to the Mina Studio YouTube channel in the description of this video, so make sure you click that link and subscribe. So in the rest of this video, in my interview with Nathan, we're going to cover some ways you can save money on instruments, on tech gear, as well as tools and software to get some creative design done for your church. So without further ado, here's my interview with Nathan Drake. Nathan Drake, welcome to the Churchfront Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, before we dive into tools for the broke worship leader, I want the audience to just get to know you. So can you go ahead, spend a few moments introducing yourself, tell us where you're at and what you're up to.
All right, I am Nathan Drake, as you previously said. I'm a worship leader here in St. Louis, Missouri. I live in Florissant, which if you're anywhere in the world, you know of Ferguson, Missouri, unfortunately. I live right next to that, but it's a very nice town. It's great. So I lead worship in St. Louis City at a church plant called Christ City Church. We're a small church plant. We meet in a cafe. Probably have 15-ish people that come regularly. We have like 40 or so people who are regular attenders, but 15 or so every week. And then I also make some online resources, one of which is Reawaken Hymns, which puts out modern versions of old classic hymns. And the other one I just started a couple weeks ago, and that is Mina Studio, which is kind of where we're getting all of our stuff from today. And that's a resource for churches that don't have many resources or also don't have many skill resources. So that's just there to help them out and to figure out how to do worship when you don't have the tools you need to do it.
Yeah, that's great. And as someone leading a small church plant, like you said, with maybe a dozen to a couple dozen people on a Sunday, you know firsthand like what it's like to work with limited resources, right? You're not working with a congregation of thousands of people with a multi-million-dollar budget, but that doesn't mean you can't have a really solid worship experience. And when I say solid, I mean you're a competent worship leader. So from a theological standpoint, gathering the people of God together to sing songs and worship Him, but also just from a practical standpoint, I think one thing that's really exciting about being a worship leader today, even if you're a contemporary worship leader, is that tools have become super affordable with the rise of the internet. Obviously we all have great access to information, but even some of these hardware, software tools that we're going to get into here in this session, there's really not much excuse to not really do worship ministry well and
right.
with excellence. So,
and I also like to make sure people know what's the difference between what is needed and what is wanted, because a lot of the stuff you see online is, here's the $10,000 equipment setup that you need for your church, and that might not be true. So I just want to make sure that people know if they don't have $10,000, they can still do good worship. So
yeah, that's great. And I'll admit, I'm a dreamer. I'm a visionary. I love to be like, let's just like dream of getting the best and the best and having the best of the best gear. And like sometimes it's good to dream, but sometimes it's just not reality. And It's really good to think about practically what's going to work. What do we need? Right now, for example, I need to travel to my office and home every day. My wife and I we're a one-car family. I want to be a one-car family because I think the way that the whole car industry is going, I don't think we'll have to own cars for much longer. We'll be able to hail a autonomous Uber or something like that to pick us up.
That sounds terrifying.
So I know, right? But it's going to happen, and we're documenting that right here. So I'm not the only one predicting this, but I need other transportation. So like I have an electric bike that helps me get to and from places, and then there's part of me that really wants a boosted board. And I don't know if you know what a boosted board is, but it's like an electric longboard, all the cool YouTubers have on and stuff. I'm like, I really want a boosted board, but I don't need one, even though functionally it would help me get done what I want to get done. So let's just dive right in and go ahead and let's chat about these tools for the broke worship leader. What do you got for us?
All right, well, I have several different categories because in a small church, the worship leader kind of tends to do everything, usually.
Yep.
Sometimes because they're control freaks, but usually because there's not other people that can do it. So I have some tools for design, I have some tools for displaying, announcements, music, all kinds of stuff. So we'll start with design. And what I have here is two tools, the first of which is a program, or two programs. It is Inkscape. So Inkscape is a open source vector editor. It's like Illustrator, but it's the open source free version of that. And that would, if you're using that, I'm assuming you have a reasonable skill level in graphic design. The alternative to that, if you don't have any skill in vector editing, is a website called canva.com. And it is a editor, but it comes with all kinds of pre-done designs. It's got all like curated fonts that you can use. So with both of those being free, there's not really an excuse to have really bad design. And then the second tool that goes along with those is free font websites. So there's tons of them. The ones I use, there's one called dafont.com. That's D-A font. There's Font Squirrel, like the little squirrel, the animal, and then 1001 free fonts. Those are three that I use. But if you put all those fonts that you can get for free with a free program like Inkscape, then you can make awesome designs for free. And nothing will ruin a good graphic design quicker than a bad font. If you have Comic Sans in your graphic, you've gone wrong somewhere. I'll just tell you that right now.
Or Papyrus.
Unless you're Avatar and James Cameron, then you can use it.
Yeah, exactly.
So those are the design tools, I would say. Inkscape is great. It's not quite as intense and full-fledged as Illustrator is, but for most of us church guys, you can do everything you need to do in it if you have those skills in vector editing. Canva is also really good, and if you don't know what you're doing, Canva is great because it kind of has exactly what you can do. There's all kinds of designs. There's like categories like YouTube thumbnails, like slides, emails, brochures, all that stuff. They all look really good. There's all fonts and stuff. So those are two free tools for design that I think would be great for your church. Also, free font sites will get you great fonts, and those will always help your designs look better. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the one rule with church graphic design is please don't use Microsoft Word clip art. Please. I think that's in the Bible, probably.
Yeah.
I think so.
So that's great stuff. And to add to this, I think you just help save folks possibly, up to $50 a month, because you could have the alternative. And I think it'll be kind of fun to talk about some of these alternatives as we go along of what your typical route would be if you did have the funds. And if you have the funds, awesome. Like use them, great.
Right.
But if you didn't, like the alternative to this would be using Adobe Suite, which for Photoshop, Illustrator. I think another one that is kind of a Photoshop substitute I've heard of, but I haven't used much myself, is called GIMP.
Yep.
Which is another kind of a similar concept of Photoshop where you're working with layers and images and, like you said, Inkscape sounds like the Illustrator substitute. But those things get expensive. I think it's $50 a month for the Adobe Creative Suite. I have that. It's great. I think I'm not a huge fan of Adobe. I wish they weren't the leading creative tools software provider right now. Like I wish Mac wasn't the leading hardware provider, because I just think they don't for as much money as those companies have, they don't create that great of products. But hey, with these tools, this could save you $50 a month by using these free programs rather than subscribing to Adobe Suite. And then fonts, I've used dafont.com a lot, fontsquirrel.com. Creative Market is another place that they're not free, but when you're trying to find good fonts that aren't the plain ones that come with your computer, You could go to Creative Market, but then again, you start spending lots of money. It's like $20 a font, and it can just get really, really pricey after a while. So always a great go-to to go to those free font websites.
Yeah, I spend far too much time on those.
Yeah. Hey, what else you got for us?
So the next thing I have is two pieces of hardware that go together. So this is Chromebooks and Chromecast. If you don't know what they are, Chromebooks are just like cheap web-based laptops by Google. They're not Windows and they're not Mac. They're Chrome OS, which is Google's own operating system. And then the other thing is a Chromecast, which if you don't know what that is a HDMI dongle that you plug into your TV, and that's used to cast things to your TV. It would be like in place of a HDMI cable, basically. So I got the Chromebook on Groupon for like $120, which is absurd for a laptop that works. And then the Chromecast are like $30. So for $150, you can get the package of both of them, and you can do lots of cool things with them in your church. One, very important to worship leaders, is doing your presentations, like your lyric slides and stuff. So if you're in a place like maybe you're in a house church, or maybe it's like a secondary room in your church, or it's a public space like my church meets in a cafe, and I would never leave a MacBook there over the weekend or something. You can use this for $150 and get slides. So you would use these two and Google Slides, which is free to use, and you can make all of your presentation slides. And with Chromecast, you can cast it to a TV to use as your presentations. Google Slides is not ProPresenter. It's not Proclaim. It's not Media Shout. It's not going to do stuff like those. But it will do the most important thing with slides, is that it will help people to sing the words. Because that is the first thing we're trying to do with slides. It's awesome when slides look amazing and you have cool motion backgrounds, and that can create an awesome atmosphere. But that is all a want. It is not a need. And it's not necessary. So with Google Slides, you could just make a bunch of slides. Just put, simple white font on a black background, and that would work great. In fact, one of my friends works at a church who deliberately does this. They only use black backgrounds with a simple white font. They've done it for years. They're probably 1,000 or so people, and they do that deliberately just so they won't be distracting. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. And for $150, you can't really get a cheaper way to put lyric slides somewhere. So that's the primary thing I would use it for. The other things aren't really worship leader things, but there are church things. One of them is like kids check-ins. A lot of people have like a laptop or iPad there. It drives me crazy if I go to a church and they have like a $1,500 MacBook sitting there whose only job is to be on a web page 24/7. I'm like, that's not right. So like use something like a Chromebook. You can even cast it to a TV where you can see like the little which kids are being terrible numbers, they have in church. Mm-hmm. And so use something like that for that. So you're not spending $1,500, you're spending 10 times less than that, $150. And then the other thing you could do with it, I did this in an old church, is we had a TV in our lobby that had announcement slides going at all times, so we didn't have to have a huge announcement thing in church and kind of break the mood of worship. We had a bunch of slides outside in the lobby going on. We did that with a laptop kind of hidden in a cabinet and then a Chromecast going to it. So $150, you can get a computer that works, and something to cast to a TV, and you can do all kinds of stuff with it.
Love these ideas. Talking about just displaying lyrics in worship, one thing that's cool about affordability of technology lately has been large, big flat screen TVs aren't uber expensive, right? You can get, I think you can get like a Vizio or like one of those sort of, I think Vizio is probably Best Buy's kind of knockoff brand or something like that. But you can get these knockoff brands, 60-inch TV for, I almost feel like you can get those for like $500 now. I mean, they don't get like the 4K Ultra HD 3D version of it, but get whatever the base like 1080 specs or something like that, and that's a great solution.
In our church in the cafe, that's what we do. We have a 55-inch TV that we use as our primary lyrics display.
Do you remember how much that cost you?
I think it was like $400.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I mean, you can just there's so many options out there, but that's a really great one, especially in a smaller setting. Yeah. But heck, even, I don't know, if you're in a church that has maybe you do have a space that holds a couple hundred people, like you could have some really a simple display setup. Maybe you have like maybe you get two of these inexpensive widescreen TVs and you have them on each side of the stage or something like that. I've seen that at actually larger concert venues and stuff like that. Worship bands will do that. And then you're right. I think sometimes it's a stewardship issue around, like, do we need a $3,000 15-inch MacBook Pro running a kid's check-in interface, where it's literally just opening up to a web browser to do a lot of these things. And I think a lot of times folks forget that so much of computing today is cloud computing, so we're not really ever relying on local hardware to get the job done. If you're doing lots of intense creative work, maybe, but hey, even we just talked about something like Canva, where Canva is like putting all that design software in the cloud and making it super easy to do it. You can do it from wherever. I love Canva and what they're doing there. But even ProPresenter, a lot of our church management systems, it's all of their servers are doing the hard work somewhere else, and then you're simply using your computer or hardware to really just access that information and display it. So it is kind of a stewardship thing. Is like, do we really need to spend that much money on certain pieces of hardware here, where it's just completely overkill? At the same time, I'm like, I don't want to compromise on a computer that's running my tracks, or if I am using ProPresenter, because if those things crash, like you do want to have nicer hardware running those things. So if you're going to spend money on a computer, it's like, make sure you're actually using that computer for things like intense creative work, like working with video, audio files, things like that.
Exactly.
Great ideas. And I love the idea of having that dedicated announcement TV, where instead of like, even, this is almost like a worship flow issue, right? Instead of having an announcement time at your church during the worship service, like, have some slide somewhere that's just running the announcements. I hate announcements during the worship service. I just think it's like, man, it's 2017. I understand there's some things we need to really bring to the forefront for the congregations to, like, they're not going to go out of their way to figure out this information, but at the same time, most church announcements apply to maybe like 2% of the room are going to take action on that one announcement. So it's like, why not put these somewhere else? People can learn about them somewhere else, do a better job with your church communications throughout the week, etc. So great stuff, man. Let's continue to move on through these tools. Let's talk about whatever you have next for us.
All right, so the next thing I actually have two music tools. The first is guitar. The second is keyboard. We'll start with the guitar. So this is, again, two pieces of hardware put together. So it is a Squier guitar.
Squier?
I know. Hold on. And this little $50 Zoom G1 on pedal. And if there's any electric guitarists in churches listening right now, they're probably screaming at me. I understand. Let me explain. So there's kind of two camps when it comes to Squiers. One says these are terrible Chinese-made knockoffs of Fender guitars, and that's correct. And the other camp says these are wonderful, cheap guitars made by a company who really knows how to make guitars, and that is also correct. So I kind of fall into the camp of, I like Squiers. You got to test them, you got to get the right one, but I really like them. They're cheap Fenders, but they're cheap Fenders, so they're good. And then the little Zoom pedal is like $50. It has all kinds of effects. It's got a looper on it, which is crazy for $50. And then it's got amp simulations. It's got effects, so you can actually just kind of use it as your DI box and plug straight into the system. So this, I know, is a terrible guitar setup technically, but I think it's better to have something than not have something. Like your Helix or your limited edition Vox tube setup is like the Ferrari, and if that's a Ferrari, then this setup is like a moped with a flat tire or something. But if I gotta get to work, I'd rather have the moped than nothing. So that's why we're going over this. It's like $200. Like the guitar's like $150. The Zoom's like $50. And you're not gonna get amazing sounds of it, but you can get pretty decent sounds out of it. And as with everything, the most important part about getting good sounds has nothing to do with your equipment. It's all about you. It's all about if you know what to do and if you've practiced and if you have the skills. Like you could hand this $200 setup to a super experienced guitarist and then hand a $10,000 setup to a beginner, and the experienced guitarist with this setup would sound better. He just would.
I mean, like you could. John Mayer will always sound better, probably on a one-stringed Squier electric guitar, than you ever would sound with a $5,000 Gibson or something like that, right? Like or even Fender. It's really so much of that is the person using the tool than it is the tool itself.
Right, and that's one of those want-need things. This is not as good as a tool as an expensive setup, but again, it's better to try and to try to sound good and to have this than to just give up because you don't have the equipment, because you can make decent sounds on this. It's not going to be recording quality. You shouldn't be recording this in a studio, with all kinds of money, but it can make some decent sounds on a stage if you're just doing simple things. So, that is that. And then the next thing is the keyboard setup. And this one is not a compromise. Well, it sort of is, but so for the keyboard setup, we got Mainstage, and Mainstage is absurd. It's like probably the best deal in music software history because it's $29 and you get all of Logic Pro's keyboard sounds and all of their instruments and everything with that for $30, which is crazy because Mainstage is a program that's used by pros all over the place. I mean, you could go to a mega church like the biggest, like Joel Osteen's church or something, and
they use Mainstage at Red Rocks, the
on
church
Red Rocks,
I go to here. Yeah,
it's used everywhere because it sounds great and it's good, and it's $30, which is ridiculous. And you compare that with something like a Keystation 49, which is just a cheap MIDI keyboard. It's like $80, and you can have pro level sounds out of that. I mean, the keyboard's not very elegant. It doesn't have weighted keys. It's only 49 keys. I get that. That's where the compromise comes in. But you're not compromising on sound at all. Yeah. So a keyboard is a place where you can get pro-level sounds for like $100, which is just crazy. And then when you get more money in the future and you want to spend more on gear, you can get a better MIDI keyboard with maybe more buttons or more keys or weighted keys or something like that.
So are you saying I don't need a $3,000 or $4,000 Nord Stage 3 piano?
I'm saying probably not. No, you don't need that.
I think you also need like a $20,000 engineering degree to run one of those things as well. Because
that's true.
I just see a lot of churches make this mistake of we need to get this fantabulous Roland or Nord keyboard or whatever. It's like, yeah, if you want to spend hours figuring out how to use the dang thing, or you could spend $30 on Mainstage. Get a decent controller. This is what we did for Mission Lakewood. We bought I think it's like a $500 full weighted keys M-Audio MIDI controller keyboard.
Yep.
Keyboard itself makes zero sounds, but we're gonna plug $30 into it, or Mainstage for $30 into it. We got a used MacBook Air, and that is gonna be that computer's one job to run Mainstage. Mm-hmm. And then so that's our setup, and for much less money, we're going to have all the best worship sounds that all the big guys use at Hillsong and Red Rocks and stuff like that. It's really cool. And it's funny how Mainstage is only $30 because usually Apple and deal is it's like an oxymoron, right? Those things don't go together. But heck, some reason they're not charging very much for it. They could charge a lot more. Hopefully they don't change their mind about it.
I know.
Apple and their creative software tools, they're really strange. I've heard because they make most of their money off of iPhones, they're not really devoting that much manpower or engineering to Final Cut Pro, Logic, GarageBand, Mainstage, all these great creative tools. So who knows how long those things are going to be around for us, because they much rather make money off of selling overpriced phones to teeny boppers instead. But that's Apple. But hey, those are great tools though for both affordable guitar setup and keyboard setup. What do we have next?
Next, we have the cheapest tool of the day, which is free, probably, and that is your old cell phone. And this might be my favorite worship leading tool of all time because it's so versatile. You can do so much with your old cell phone. I mean, you can do a new cell phone, but then you don't have a cell phone. The things you can do with a cell phone, you could have it as a guitar tuner. You could have it playing pads in the background, which is what I use mine for. It could be a camera. If it has a decent camera, it could be an audio recorder. It could be a sound meter with an app, although those apps aren't very good usually, so I probably wouldn't recommend that. It could run announcements off Google Slides, like on that TV, like we talked about with the Chromecast. You could put chord sheets on it. You could look up chords on it. You could play pre-service music on it. If you have an Apple and GarageBand, like an old iPhone, you could have keyboards or drum loops and all that kinds of stuff. There's just so much you can do with the old cell phone, and it's free because you already have it. One really good thing you could do with it is if you are in a small church who doesn't record sermons or doesn't have the equipment to record sermons, like maybe your house church and your pastor doesn't even wear a mic or something like that, you could buy like a $20 lavalier microphone on Amazon or wherever online, plug it into the old cell phone, hit record on an audio app, put it in his pocket, and you're recording your sermons for a podcast later for like $20. So there's just so much you can do with old cell phones, and the list goes on. That's just some of the stuff. I'm sure lots of you out there have crazy, weird things you do with your old cell phones in worship.
Yeah, I mean they're little mini supercomputers. These things. It's insane. And then even if you don't have an old one lying around, like because maybe you trade it in every time you get a phone, like go onto Craigslist, eBay, find those really inexpensive older iPhones, or probably I would stick with iOS, even though I'm an Android guy for my primary phone. A lot of these worship tools apps, even when we're talking about like what's the backing track ones, like Loop Communities Prime or Multitracks, those free apps for doing things, they're often they're just for iOS. So I would get those old devices, or get an iPad too, because then if you want older than iPad, you can have more screen real estate.
You could also do an iPod Touch as well.
Yep. Yeah, just make sure they're not too old, because sometimes they stop working with new software updates, and you don't want $100 thing that's not going to do anything for you. But yeah, that's great stuff. We shouldn't underestimate, like, hey, it's crazy. This is just in the past 10 years how we all have these portable little supercomputers in our pocket. Amazing what those things can do. So yeah. All right, and then what else do you have for us?
Well, the last thing I have isn't really a very cheap tool, but it makes you be able to use cheap tools. So I would say, we've talked about this actually a lot already in the podcast. If you're going to spend money on something, a cheaper MacBook would be a great place to put that money. I've really only paid premium for two things in my worship leader arsenal. One was the MacBook, and the other was my acoustic guitar. And those are both the things that I use the most for the most heavy lifting, and are hard to get away with cheaper versions of. So why I would talk about a MacBook is because even though the computer itself is really expensive, their pro-level apps are insanely cheap for what they are. We talked about Mainstage for $30 is ridiculous, but even the expensive apps like Logic and Final Cut are hundreds of dollars cheaper than the PC counterparts. Like Logic is $199, and Pro Tools is like $700, or like Final Cut's $300, and then Adobe Premiere that's like $50 a month, so that's $600 a year already. And they're great programs, especially if you're someone who isn't like a pro at these things, but you want to get pro level results. They're easy to use programs, but they can produce pro level results. And then the other things are GarageBand and iMovie are both probably the best versions of consumer grade movie and audio editing you can get, and they're free with a Mac, or if you don't have them on your Mac, they're like $15, I think. But they're super good because they're just the little brothers of Final Cut and Logic Pro. So if you're a worship leader who's going to be doing everything in your small church, graphics, movies, audio recording, live music, all that stuff, getting a cheap MacBook and then using things like GarageBand and iMovie and Photos and all that stuff can actually end up saving you some money than getting a cheap PC in the long run, and you'll get great results, and they're pretty easy to use. And as we talked about earlier, hopefully Mac continues to support those pro apps in the future. Please, Mac, keep supporting those.
Hopefully. They don't care about you and your opinions about that, Nathan.
I know.
They don't care about anything besides making money off this freaking iPhone. Oh my gosh. But And it's, you see, like, so they just upgraded Logic, because that's what I use for like my podcast and stuff. It's easy, simple. I'm just not a big fan of Adobe. I feel like Adobe tries to make things too complicated. Like as much as I hate Mac, I love it because it helps me get my jobs done really easily. But they just updated Logic, and they're just trying to make it look more and more like GarageBand. And like the same thing with Final Cut Pro, like they're kind of making it more and more like iMovie. It's great. I mean, I can get used to it and adjust to it, because a lot of those changes are really just aesthetic, and it doesn't make that big of an impact on the end product that you're trying to make. But I think we just need to enjoy these affordable tools while they last. Who knows where Apple's going to go with them? But I just think they're getting to a point where they're like, they don't generate enough revenue off of professional creatives. They're really just focusing on consumers who are wanting to dabble into these content creation. So awesome, man. Well, dude, those are some really, really helpful tools that you shared with us to really get anybody going in worship ministry. For folks to want to stay in touch with you, to keep learning more about tools for the broke worship leader. We originally wanted to title this "Tools for the Broke Ass Worship Leader," but I had to throw that out there because it's funny. I didn't want to put in the title because I don't know how funny it is for some people, but it's true. Like there's some worship leaders in small church like that. We're just broke ass, and we need these tools to help us get the job done well without breaking the bank. But if folks want more tools like this, what should they do? How do they stay in touch with you and what you're up to?
Well, the best way would be to subscribe to the Mina Studio channel on YouTube. A lot of the stuff I talked about today is stuff that I will be making videos on in the future, so you got it before the videos are even made. So subscribe to Mina Studio, and then you can talk to me through Mina Studio. I started a couple weeks ago, so it's really hard to find me right now because I've been there for 3 weeks and YouTube doesn't believe I'm a real channel yet, I don't think. So you can do that, or an easier way to find that could be to go to www.reawakenhymns.com, which is my website for my other channel, Reawaken Hymns. And then there's messages on there, and I will get those right away, and I can even tell you how to find Mina Studio until YouTube puts it higher in the search results. So yeah. Nathan's really up to 2 projects to help you resource you, the worship leader. One is obviously Mina Studio. That's what this session's been about, and he'll help you find creative tools for your affordable tools for your ministry. And then the other thing he actually started even a while back, and I think we'll probably do another session, Nathan, in the future about Reawaken Hymns, because Nathan's super passionate about hymnody in the church and taking some of these older hymns, maybe giving them giving them a refresh of using our modern instruments and stuff like that, to just really introduce them to a new generation of folks in the church. I have a soft spot in my heart for hymns. My wife and I love them, love leading worship with them. Haven't done a whole lot of that recently, but reawakenhymns.com. So that's probably the best URL right now for you to find Nathan, or just search in YouTube Mina Studio. I'll put a link in the bottom of this if you're watching this in video form, a link underneath this YouTube video, or if you're listening to the podcast, just go to reawakenhymns.com and you'll find him there. So Nathan, I appreciate what you're up to, resourcing worship leaders. Thanks for your time today, and just keep up the good work. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Nathan and you have a bunch of ideas and inspiration for building your worship ministry on a small budget. And if you want more ideas for gear for your worship ministry, check out my worship ministry toolkit. It's a list of all of my favorite tools I've used in my worship ministry, and I compiled it all into one convenient place with links and all those great things to get you quick access to tools that'll help you build your own ministry. And I've also included the tools that I talked with Nathan about in this video. So if you're looking for those tools yourself, just click the link below, complete the form, and I'll send you access to the worship ministry toolkit. Don't forget to subscribe to the Churchfront channel, tell all your friends about it, and please hit that like button if you found this video helpful for your ministry.